Corinne. So, thank you so much for allowing me to do my presentation, just in a more video format. We still don't have power. It's day 4. So, I'm in the building that has power. Literally, only one building has power. Had to relocate all my students. And yeah, talk about leadership, right? So I'm gonna just go through my presentation. You kind of already know what I'm pretty much gonna say because I went through it with you already. So yeah, I made the corrections that you told me to make, and I think I'm good to go. So my mission in life is to motivate staff to show up in an authentic way in spaces, even if the organization is not ready for change. I come from Chicago, Illinois, where African American men were known for being intimidated, uneducated, and being a part of the criminal justice system. I don't come from a long list of educated black men. In fact, I'm the star to the list. The purpose of my leadership was was always to help and build relationships with people. I started off pursuing a career in criminal justice, but I immediately became exhausted with the images the media portrayed black men to be. I honestly felt helpless. I then chose to enter the field of higher education, where I had the opportunity to build some strong relationships and create a legacy while working with students. I always had a strong personality where I spoke my mind, where I didn't take drama, and where I not only fought for myself but others who didn't want to speak up. I had a lot of potential and ideas where I was often called to serve on committees and work on special projects. For a while, it felt good to be needed, but then I wanted opportunities where I would be able to move up. I would often get told that I wasn't ready or it wasn't my time. And those initiatives, but yet I was still being called to lead major events and initiatives and projects. And I essentially was preparing others around me to be successful. And so that it just really impacted me overall just as a leader. Most recently, I hit rock bottom, causing me to experience some mental health issues when I worked at Illinois State. So what I'm going to go into it is definitely an equity and social justice issue. So to start, I was originally, as you know, I'm a PhD student. I had the opportunity. That was a privilege to even go through a program. A job came open where I would be leading full time staff, and all I know was I was intentionally recruited. I was praised for the work that I done for the department and housing, and I interviewed for the job. I sold myself, and within 2 hours later, they declined me, and I wondered like why. So as I got more information, the black man in the department told me that I sold myself too much, and I really didn't know what that meant. I really did. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because I've heard of me not selling myself too much, but I mean not selling myself too much, but you told me I oversold myself. So I felt weird about that comment, especially being a black man in America, because I feel like being black, things are not given to us, and more likely than not, we have to perform 10 times harder than our white counterparts. And so it just kind of took me by surprise. In the interim, they had appointed me to be the interim area coordinator, which is the position I applied for, and I was leading full time staff. So they basically had me doing all of the work, and basically I didn't get the job. And so I spent some time wondering, like, okay, I'm doing the job, and you think I can do it in an interim, but you don't think I can do it full time. So that made me think more critically about it, about my leadership style, and it had me overthinking everything. So I told them that I was searching at this point because I knew that I'm getting a PhD and I want to move up, and again I didn't want to be where I started at, and not make any sort of moves. And so afterwards, I just received very, very critical feedback and a critical experience after I told them I was searching. And so it was just something that really impacted me to the point that I thought about leaving the field. I just thought about, I didn't care about anything else. I just seen a really dark side of myself. And most importantly, when I was declined for the job, they basically told me that they're going to work with me with give me professional development. That never happened at all. I think I would have been more appreciative if that had been happening, but it didn't happen. So yeah, ultimately, as I kind of transition from the story, I think about, what it all boils down to is politics. Of course, I'm not a yes man. So I don't fit the stereotype that if everybody's on board, I'm going to agree with it, even though I know I don't. I don't fit characteristic. I'm also a person who identifies those inequities and those diversity issues and things that need to be said that people aren't saying. So I just resonate with that. And I also speak my mind. And as I begin to reflect on the culture of the department does not like anybody who disrupt any behaviors that are problematic. And so I look at the leadership team; they've been there 1,000 years, and they also get intimidated by people who have those ideas and has that drive. And so I knew ultimately that it wasn't me; it was more so them. I was gonna get them out their comfort zone and push them too far, which is why I didn't get that. And it was a different dynamic. And also, like I said, my drive and just vision, just ultimately intimidated them. And I'm a kind of person where I'm a leader where I don't forget where I come from. And so it was just interesting. So as I kind of reflect on the scholarship component and the literature review component of this, I, I I've been thinking about this story and I have not really processed the trauma that I've been through up until now and until being in this class. And so when I was reading the Meyerson and the Tompkins reading, they talked about how radicals would challenge the status quo and be intentional about who they are. And so I felt like that was just me. It definitely was me. The status quo was, hey, you have to be a certain kind of person in order to navigate and be successful in that department. When you consider to be somebody different, or you challenge them, then that doesn't work well for you. In fact, you're looked at as the person as the problem child or something like that. And so I felt that I was being labeled as aggressive and demanding. So when I heard that from just, I took that away from that literature, and I'm like, wow, that's definitely my experience. Um, Another thing that the readings talked about was how radicals are more likely to be declined promotional and opportunities, and I thought about that because again I just didn't my values did not align with that department, and I just felt that the things that I care about is building those relationships with people and hearing people's story and including people and versus the leaders I was working under, those people were not intentional about those different things. So therefore, that's why I didn't fit into that organization. And also, it kind of something that really really stood out to me was the reading talked a lot about um, how radicals are often put in awkward situations where they're trying to navigate change but also stay true to themselves. So basically, they're kind of switching in between being themselves but also fitting in with the organization. I've felt myself doing that before, and I'm not doing that because I want to keep my job, but I know that everything is it's just political chaos. And so I knew for a fact that um, in order to not create a bad name for myself, I knew I had to be able to switch and turn it on and turn it off. Even though I don't feel like I should have to do that. So it's just kind of weird. So now I'm at a point where I'm going to talk about I identify both. as a transformative leader and a transformational leader. So when I think about the my story and how it resonates, I thought about the tenets of leadership. And so I told my goal and as a higher education professional is to change folks' mindset. And because I want them to be able to think differently, that just because this is how it's always been doesn't mean that that's going to work for everything in every situation. In order to grow organizations, it's important to employ those who are different from the leaders, because that's how you create a progressive space. Um, this also creates gaps as it relates to moving up in moving the organization forward. Um, I also resonated with Tenet 1. It talks a lot about accepting the mandate for deep and equitable change. It is essential at the end of the day to make sure that higher ed organizations are equitable, as it can impact the overall morale and retention, especially pertaining professionals of color. And I felt that that department that I came from struggled to maintain people of color because they were always battling constant microaggressions and just issues, and they weren't being moved up, and it just was problematic, to say the least. So as I talked earlier, I definitely agree. I definitely resonate as a professional, and I believe my goal is to develop team members from start to finish. I want to be able to make an impact on the people that on people that I want to be able to leave an impact on people that I work with directly, especially because I'm in a director role now. So I have the opportunity to build people from start to finish. Um, Also, I think another thing that I'm always willing to do is make them feel comfortable and valued. My goal is never to forget where I come from. So I've only been a director for literally 2 months, but I'll never forget at one point I was where these people that I'm leading are. And so I think that that's essential to not forget that, because that's how you really bond with your staff. Um, I will say, based on the literature, I identify personally as I'm going to talk a little bit about being a transformational leader. I strive at meeting needs of complex and diverse systems as a person of color and working directly with folks with similar identities. I've had a passion for developing people and making organizations change and improve morale. I thrive on delivering equity practices within any organization I work within. And finally, I live by the concept of improvement and never becoming complacent. As I reflect on the transformational leadership theory, I tend to critique processes and policies in order to improve any organization I represent. I also practice activism for all the people I work in collaboration with. As a leader, I think activism shows commitment to those I work with, and I've seen it because I built those relationships with people before. And so as I think about this, I always think that I can always be better. I'm also a leader where I'm teachable. I'm always teachable. I'm learning from my staff. I'm learning from my students, and so that's why I'm able to build those effective relationships as I talked about. How I'm gonna motivate. I'm gonna use these experiences that I've had to guide my own team. When I left Illinois State, one of the things that I left with the director was I may not know everything. In fact, I may not have the answers to everything, but one thing I know is how to treat people. And when you treat people good, everything else falls in line. I don't think I'm better than anyone. I feel like, I'm humble about who I am. And so I left that and I felt like I was totally in control at that time. And so it's just been a really good time to just reflect on these experiences. It's really good mental health, to be honest, because I was at a bad place. especially starting a doctoral program. So I want to thank you just for your wisdom and just listening to me and help me break down and even affirming me, because I know you said that you worked with people from housing before, and so yeah, it's just interesting. So thank you so much. Sorry about the little bit of nervousness. It's kind of weird talking at a screen, but thank you so much, and let me know if you have any questions.